Okay.
Excuse me, let's start. Good afternoon, I'm John Matola, Vice Chair of the Board of Finance, and this is the Monday, August 4th, 2025 Audit Subcommittee meeting of the Fairfield Board of Finance. It looks like members are here. We have Lori Charlton and Mary LeClaire. And it looks like Tom Harris and Joe Sedafani are joining us. And let's call this meeting to order, which I just did. Item number 2 is a discussion with external auditor Joe Sedafani upcoming project regarding review of town policies and procedures. We thought this would be an opportunity just to discuss with Joe what he intends to do. After all, we're paying for this from our Board of Finance budget, and it's my understanding, Joe, that the Board of Selectmen approved the contract, which is part of the backup to tonight's meeting. And so I'll turn it over to you,
Yeah.
Joe, to give us just a summary of what you intend to do, and then have members ask any questions of you. I think maybe at least Ms. Charlton, correct me if I'm wrong, that you believe maybe there's some other areas that you may want Joe to explore, but when we get there, we can discuss that, and maybe Mary has some ideas too. So, Joe, I'll hand it over to you first. Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess the scope of services, as I understood it, way back when we set it up, was kind of looking at the cash disbursement process. And the policies that the town has related to that. So I did get a list of, or I had copies of all related policies related to cash disbursements, and these are some of them. I think subsequently I had a couple other minor ones, credit memo and just evidence of receipt, again, that it's to be documented. Munis, like when goods or services are received, that had to be documented before the bill was paid. So all these kind of related capital assets, touches on it, that there's multiple things with that policy, but obviously it's part of a disbursement process. So I'm not sure if that needs to be part of this, at this go around, it would be a separate one. Or part of it is just more of the flagging part, if looking at what should be happening to kind of make that process go a lot smoother if things are identified along the way versus trying to do it at the end. So I kind of looked at, these are the policies that kind of relate to that. So this process, we just start going through these policies and I think kind of blend a lot of this, because you have 8 or 9 policies related to cash disbursements. I think just the initial reaction that kind of incorporating these specific things into a single policy would make it more efficient and a little bit easier to manage. So there's one place to look at. This is what the departments need to do as far as pushing something to finance and get paid. And then, part of the policy, I don't think you really have, from some conversation, was just a little bit more detail around what finance should be looking at when they're processing an invoice. So a lot of times there's a checklist or that type of thing, just to kind of look at, does it have a PO? Was it bid? Is it signed off? Look at account distribution. So I think that's something that's in a lot of towns that kind of falls away over time, for someone to kind of look at and say, does this make sense? Part of, from account distribution standpoint, is this the right place? I mean, obviously department heads have a lot of knowledge behind that, but there still should be some critical review as part of the process. So that's kind of the big picture as far as what I understood the project to be.
Go ahead, Lori. Do you have any questions? You want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you making yourself available for this meeting. And I think I may have mentioned this to Mr. Matola, but for Ms. LeClaire's benefit, I did speak briefly to to Mr. Harris and Mr. Santafanti, I think last week I was in town hall. And I had just a couple of reactions, which I'll share and throw out, and then maybe we can go from there. One of the things that I thought would be helpful here is to have, I don't know to what extent we have written policies or checklists around our monthly close process and our reconciliations. But I thought that was important. I think one of the recurring themes that we hear when we have internal audits and things go wrong is that things tend to fall apart when we have turnover among employees because we don't have things written down. And, even if you try to have a transition period, which is not always easy, if someone gives notice, we don't get the replacement in time. But, whether we do or don't have a transition, we tend to have a lot of things that go awry when people leave. And I think part of that is a function of not having policies. So I just thought whether it was payroll, the monthly close, the required key reconciliations at month end, at year end, quarter, whenever, that we should look at those. If there's an absence of written policies, then I thought it would be helpful to develop them as part of this project. Ms. Leclerc probably remembers this well, but the last time we did a review of policies, which was around purchasing and DPW, we got a very comprehensive report from Mr. Santafanti. He had a lot of findings. I think there were like 75 recommendations. But then we had a hard time reconciling those recommendations to the policy that was ultimately developed. We had to go back after the fact and map it and try and understand whether what was put into place would really address all the findings that were identified. So I was hoping that we could do that jointly and not have, even if we had to narrow the scope of some of this, but not have a multi-step process where we then have to go back and revisit, because I think with the DPW audit and ultimately the purchasing policy, it just dragged out for years. And I was hoping to avoid that. So I agree that a focus on cash disbursements is, and all the policies around cash disbursements, if we can consolidate them and get them written down, that's great. Evaluate them for any weaknesses, evaluate what the controls are in the finance department that accompany these policies. But I do think we should also look at and develop, to the extent it's missing, written policies and procedures around our basic financial statement processes. So closing the books, doing reconciliations, year end, et cetera. So that was my initial reaction. So I'll just pause there.
Go ahead, Mary.
Muted, Mary.
I think you're muted, Mary.
Okay, sorry, I was locked. I couldn't unmute it. I agree very much with what Lori just said. I think a lot of those are basic accounting principles, like when you do internal audits and financial statements. I think that's what we should be looking at and what should be in place. And I sort of felt like during COVID, a lot of policies changed a little bit. Not that they formally changed, but because of necessity, that we may have lost some of our internal controls because we were doing things remotely and things. And I want to make sure those things get put back in place. And I don't know that that really happened, but it just felt like, out of necessity, that we didn't have as great of control as we may have once had.
You got something to say about this, Tom?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't disagree with what Lori and Mary have said. I think in terms of the disbursements kind of policies, I think by and large there is a version of those. There really is not a comprehensive policy in terms of closing processes. I mean, in part because I think as a matter of practice, the town really hasn't gone through a real close process until they got to the end of a quarter. And one of the things we we're planning to do internally now is to go to a kind of a monthly close process. And I think in terms of putting together procedures, that's something that, you know, we can do on a collaborative basis with Joe. I know, Joe, you may have sent me a draft. I know you did send me some audit request items that may have been in that package, but I think that's something we can do. I don't think that would be, you know, I don't want to speak for Joe, but I don't think that would be a major project.
Yeah, I guess is just to clarify on kind of what you need from me. Like I do have just a generic checklist that I could send you. I didn't send you that yet, you know, for closing, but there's definitely some very specific things to the town. And I sent you the list of what the controller did on some very specific things. There's probably a few others, but those are kind of more specific. The general close process is you reconcile, you know, all the stuff in accounts type things. So that's, I think it's just more of a training process as far as, you know, people used to, these are the accounts you're responsible for and what you need to do at your end. I mean, cash is an easy one, but some of the others can be trued up or reconciled along the way versus others. There's certainly a lot of them that are your end, and for some certain accounts that's fine based upon activity, whereas other accounts probably should be looked at.
Yeah. And we do, I'm sorry, we do, I mean, we go through some of the processes, but they aren't documented. So
They're not documented?
all of, I mean, in terms of no, the reconciliation process, that is not documented. People, we do it. I mean, the fact that there is documentation that we have reconciled accounts, but in terms of having something on a checklist, the checklist is what doesn't exist.
So is that like something done monthly, basically?
The reconciliations are, you know, are done generally on a monthly basis. You know, with, we had an analyst that was out for a year. So we felt, when I came on board, I think we were probably a couple of 3 months behind on most of them, but we're, I think, basically current now. But the intent and the plan is to do the monthly.
So is that something that can be included, that what things should be absolutely reconciled every month, what should be reconciled every quarter, or at least once a year, for the annual statements, is so we can see that everything is being done that needs to be done?
Yes, I mean, and I can take, you know, absent a controller or someone like that, I can take the leadership, the lead in terms of doing that.
Is it a policy you would do, or simply something like a checklist that Joe?
Well, the checklist would be
It's-
incorporated as a part of the policy, you know, it's.
I mean, it should be, for example, what I was thinking is that it's a policy that we reconcile, you know, this is the list of accounts that gets reconciled at what
Correct.
frequency. And it would be, you know, both revenue and expenses. So policy to reconcile the tax collectors
Correct.
stuff to Munis and to their system and to the bank. Policies to reconcile you know, bank accounts. Those have to be done on a monthly basis and approved by the, you know, CFO or whoever approves them, controller. And whatever other individual accounts and not just the general fund. I mean, I assume there are other funds
Right. Correct.
that we go through these processes periodically. And I don't know how often we do those, because oftentimes I know from our board standpoint, we don't tend to focus on those throughout the year, maybe with the exception of the internal service fund. I think we've been paying a bit more attention to that during the year because of it's just been such a tricky area in the budget process. So we've asked for not necessarily reconciliations, but activity to kind of see
Right.
what's going through there. So, but there's other, you know, there's other accounts. There's the, you know, Park and Rec revolving fund account. There's, you know, all these various funds. What is it? The outside jobs funds, you know, all these individual things. I think the idea of, at least my thought was that we should have an inventory of what these requirements are and what the frequency is from a policy standpoint that we get these done and who's responsible for signing off and reviewing them. And having that in place, I think would be helpful, because I suspect that a lot of these things get done, but some of them probably don't get done at the frequency that would be optimal.
Geez, maybe I'm ignorant, assumed this was something that has always been done, but I guess. And Tom, it sounds like what you're saying is that you've been here. It's done, but it's not documented.
Yeah, I mean, like, you would have a policy that the policy would address reconciliation. It's, things that should be reconciled monthly, quarterly, whatever the time period is. And then within the policy, you would list the accounts, or items that needs to be reconciled. And you
Okay.
would identify, how frequently they need to be reconciled.
That doesn't seem like a hard thing
The
to do.
practice exists, but sort of it's, there's nothing that we can point to that says this is the guideline for doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, and John, not just reconciliations, but even the monthly close procedure
Right,
or
correct.
the year-end, whatever it is, there should be a checklist of, closed journal entries, or a checklist of, how we do payroll accruals and how we do accounts payable, or, capture all the other accruals that are required. I mean, I know we do this, but I think the issue becomes, when we do have turnover, which we've had a decent amount lately, this is where we end up in trouble. Payroll's been a prime example of that. I recall that when we had some issues with payroll on the police department side, and it was, an admin had left who was very familiar with everything, and things fall through the cracks, it takes somebody time to catch up. So, having that in place, I think is important.
Yeah.
And, again, developing these, whether it's the town that does it and Joe reviews it, but having these attached so that we don't just end up with a long list of recommendations, but we can see kind of the recommendations and the corrections together, I think would be helpful. Now, Tom, you had also mentioned that you were, and I'm just looking at the list here, the pink voucher policy, that's recently been updated. Is that correct?
Yeah, the change was implemented today, in fact. And basically what we've done there, I mean, Connie did an audit of the pink voucher policy, and there was significant non-compliance, meaning that there were items being purchased via the pink voucher system and not going through the normal requisition process, which means that, in fact, then we were not complying with the purchasing policy. So we have really reduced the number of items that can be charged via the pink voucher policy to its employee deductions, like for reimbursements for uniforms and things like that, and then year-end close items. Then everything else will go through the requisition system, effective today.
Great. Okay. And then the capital assets policies and procedures, can I just ask, what is envisioned there? Because we have, I mean, I know there's the normal, processes around how we do the accounting for all of that. But we've also, the administration in the past 18 months has made some pretty significant changes and upgrades to how we monitor and report on capital projects that are in place. It's the update that goes to the Board of Finance. It used to be annually, but now we've been getting it more frequently. It's the capital plan, it accompanies the waterfall, and that whole analysis has evolved to include not only a list of what's potentially on the horizon, but everything that's been approved thus far, and tracking the spending to date and all of those things. And, to me, memorializing that reporting is important as well. Because that was sort of, that's been all over the place. And I think now it's gotten to a good place where we have pretty comprehensive reporting. Sabrina has done a fabulous job, but again, if anything, if she were to move to another role or whatever, I just don't know that somebody would be able to pick that up and have a guideline in terms of what to do with it. So policies, procedures, reporting, I think that might be good there as well.
Mhm.
Basically, Sabrina and you guys are doing that work, but there's nothing, as Lori says, really written down in a policy
Right, no, no,
for
right,
someone
no.
to follow in case Sabrina leaves.
Yeah, I mean, if you pick up, even look at the capital plan, it's not clear what you're looking at the first time you look
Right.
at it. So, yeah, no, I get it, yeah.
That's kind of maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but almost like a checklist type of thing too, right?
Yeah, and something like that, I think I would work with Sabrina to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, that's an example of what we have in place is really good. And again, that's pretty new because 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have that. I mean, we kept asking and asking for reporting on capital projects that had been approved in the process, and we were never able to get a comprehensive report. We would get, just the recent ones or certain open ones, and it never reconciled to anything. It never reconciled to the financials, the ACFR, and the disclosures in there. So, you know, our, late first selectman and Sabrina and Mr. Becker put a lot of effort into, with some feedback from the Board of Finance, into getting that into a really comprehensive reporting mechanism, which has been incredibly useful. But uh, you know, I think just for somebody to come in and try to follow it and figure it out might
Yeah,
not be
yeah.
easy. I think memorializing the policy and how, sources of information. Same thing with the WPCA long-term capital plan. Again, that's evolved. We have something in place now, but it's, if somebody new were to have to pick that up, would they know where to get all that data from? Or the basis for the assumptions or whatever, or what the approval process is. So those sorts of things. Is there anything here? So the list that you do have here, so return checks, petty cash, authorized signers, is it fair to assume that these are all policies that do exist or not?
Yes, these are all ones that exist except for the policies and procedures governing payroll and accounts payable. That's not an actual policy. There's a binder for payroll that I looked at, but it's not, it's more how to do payroll in Munis. It's not policies and procedures, and there's nothing for AP.
Okay,
So all of these do exist and they're just all separate individual policies. Because I basically asked and kind of gave me a list of what you had, so I just looked at it, so all these are cash disbursement related, so we're doing them just all of them
okay.
together. And the capital
And
asset one,
has that payroll, whatever we have for payroll, has that been updated since Paycom was put in place, or?
No, no.
Okay.
yeah, we did do kind of a review of part of that process when we're at.
Yeah.
But that was more kind of high level, looking at controls, not down to policies.
Right. Yeah, I guess the last thing I would say is I think one of the most important aspects of this is making sure that we have appropriate controls in place to ensure compliance with our policies. And again, that's been another one that's just been an ongoing source of discussion because we have policies, we have non-compliance with the policies. And we don't know that until we have an audit. And so there should be monitoring controls in place that
Right.
if policies aren't being followed, like someone knows about it. So whether that's um, finance reviewing compliance with things, or oftentimes, a lot of our policies seem to be governed by, okay, an authorized person needs to sign off, and then that's the control, but that's not really a control.
Right.
First of all, there's no real guidance in the policy as to what the authorized individual is supposed to do in order to sign off. So we've had people signing off on invoices where pricing didn't agree to a bid, for example. Or we've had, so there wasn't a policy that said, okay, the person that signs off on this is required to go through these steps. That was never part of the policy or the documented procedures. And then there was not a backstop in finance to, I think in finance, it was a reliance on someone's authorization, but there wasn't a compliance check to make sure that things were actually being done in compliance with the policy. And, the idea that we have a lot of non-compliance with the pink voucher policy and things are sort of evading the purchasing policy is just a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we went through years trying to develop a purchasing policy. And if people are bypassing it by using pink vouchers, it shouldn't take an audit to figure that out, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It should
Yeah,
be,
and
Yeah.
not to interrupt, but we have the same situation with credit cards. So that's
Yeah.
something we need to look at.
yeah, same thing, yeah. Yeah, and that was why we kind of made such a big deal out of credit cards. It wasn't the dollar amounts involved necessarily. It was just, um, it it was a broader issue with cash disbursements as a whole and the lack of compliance monitoring for when the town pays money to anyone. So, okay. So does anybody, I don't know, does anybody else have feedback, John or Mary? I'm wondering if we, Joe, within the context of this, if we just, because two things I was concerned about is, the list, the scope is defined, which we've just talked about a little bit. And then timing so that we can, understand what the milestones are and what the expectations are for getting the work done and, so that whatever needs to be implemented can be implemented.
Yeah, I guess I need to be clear on my role. There's a big difference between reviewing or quarterbacking or driving and then doing it. So like, certainly the capital asset, that's all really internal. I can look at it, but that's all reporting. There's not really control issues. There's not really, I certainly have no problem reviewing it and see if I have any thoughts, but because what I had here was connected to the disbursement process. If you're really kind of talking about cap projects, I'm talking about buying police cars and fire trucks.
Yeah.
And that type of thing, more of that type of construction in progress. The big things are kind of easier to manage, but the reporting obviously is another aspect to that. But from an accounting side, that was flowing okay for just pure accounting, not necessarily reporting to the board. So I don't know if that's in mine or Tom.
Well, maybe you and Tom can kind of regroup and decide, what makes sense in terms of you helping to develop things. If you have examples you can provide, or you have specific comments on policies, or recommendations, you can do that. And then for some of these other things that need to be drafted, Tom can decide who's in the best position to do that.
Right, like just kind of pull it all together from a big picture disbursement. I can, and there's a lot of times I can say, I can develop the recommendation and then I can work with Tom, or do you want me to develop whatever the recommendation says? You want help with that, or does he want to do it? So that's kind of we would just more collaboratively based upon recommendations. I can help or he would do it internally or that type of thing, that would work. Again, I don't mind doing some of this for sure, and then I definitely will have some things on the close process, again, that's specific, which I did give Tom that list. But the close process, there's just a lot of things and retainage, some of those footnotes. Pension funds is something that's done annually, which I would recommend quarterly. And you report it in the general ledger. At least quarterly, if not monthly, but I think there's as you build the process, you start with quarterly and then get the bigger picture and then kind of work backwards so you can figure out how it's all working, but I think the monitoring of that, I know other people look at it from other aspects, but not necessarily financial statement. We look at the investments and what you're invested in, where you're looking at, are you looking at how benefits you're tracking or not? I don't know what happens in the pension. So, but
Yeah, well, maybe it may be between you and Tom. Maybe if we revise this list to be more comprehensive, and then Joe, maybe some of these aren't, to the extent some of these things are being developed, they might be developed internally, and then maybe you just, read them. But the
Yep.
reason that I focused on the capital assets and the reporting for that is because that is critical for us. All three boards rely on that information, both the forecasting and the actuals, to evaluate and approve any upcoming projects.
Well,
So that's the
agree.
control before we approve bonding. So, that, and then once something's approved and the money's spent, obviously it has to be spent in accordance with our policies. But what I talked about is before we even commit to spending, very similar to, what the purchasing department does on the, normal stuff that's covered by the budget. So,
Yeah, no, that's a great process. I have a 20-year capital plan in my little town because I'm little and I can do it, but I know what's coming up 20 years out. So I bought a fire truck now, I'm buying another one 18 years from now. So it helps with that long-term planning. You have something that goes out that far. So that process is definitely very valuable. So yeah, if you have a process that's working, I 100% agree, document it so that it stays matter as part of a board, a finance policy, or all the board's policies to get this information. Okay, so I can reword the, like, number one to be a little bit more flexible as far as assist with reviewing some of these, working with management to develop policies and
or
ways of-
develop a comprehensive list of what needs to be addressed. It sounds like what this list here, and now I think I understand a little better. It sounds like this list here is a list of our existing policies, which you were going to evaluate, right? And so,
related to cash disbursements, because you
yeah,
have more
around cash
policies.
disbursements, and I think what we're saying is, okay, this is what we have around cash disbursements, and we should certainly evaluate that, but what's the universe of policy we should have, and that can provide us a roadmap regardless of who's responsible for getting that done over time. But other things that just pop into my mind, like investments. I mean, I know we have an investment policy, but in terms of, how we how we track and record our investment income and all that sort of stuff. That's been a little vague. We changed the budget process, I think, 2 years ago to not include unrealized gains. And so there's just a lot of stuff that's happened that I think we don't have written down anywhere. So I can, I'll, and Mary and John, if you guys want to do the same, maybe if we just can give Tom our thoughts on this, and then, Tom and Joe, you guys can determine what pieces Joe will evaluate and be most helpful with. And then if some things have to just be developed from scratch, that aren't on this list, Tom, I don't know what the bandwidth is in your department, but at least if we have a kind of a to-do list,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
And I'll take a stab at that too. I mean, Joe, you've been around a little longer than me, and there are things that you probably are, certainly you're more familiar with than I am, but I'll take a stab at putting together the initial list. And
I
then
like,
Joe and
I think that's probably a good idea, like if we reconvene in a month
Yeah.
or so and see the to-do list and then that'll give us a better idea of what is gonna happen moving
Right.
forward. Because I'm still, be honest with you, I'm a little unclear what's happening. So,
Okay, so let me,
Right.
let me do that and then Joe and I can reconvene and then we can circle back.
Okay,
Yeah, so my take was that Joe will do most of the recommendations and then Tom can figure out how best to implement them with Joe's assistance. Is that,
yeah, and Tom
Yeah.
can also help in terms of maybe with some of our individual input on, just making sure that we've got the universe of all the policies we think we need.
right?
And, aside from, because I think we all know there's a lot of stuff that happens, but it's just been a matter of longstanding practice and things aren't written down.
Cause,
What do we need to do to get a comprehensive accounting policies and procedures manual that has our policies, that has our monthly close procedures, that has,
Right.
all that
Right.
good.
Because I was glad Tom mentioned the credit cards because I always felt like we were missing the final review piece before the payment was made.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that's on his list.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Joe, when do you, I mean, obviously you need a little bit of input, but in terms of what you had originally, when were you envisioning on starting this work?
probably the week after next. So I'd like to have a little direction again, because once I get into September, later in September, then that's audit season, so certainly can move stuff along, but the heavy lifting I prefer to do in the next 6 weeks.
Okay, so you're talking about the week of the 18th.
Yeah, so if I can look at these disbursement things in general, like if I can go ahead with that evaluation piece, because that's easy. Stuff like that I can get going on, but then, I could schedule a day once Tom has his list, I'll just do a big picture search. Best practices, some of the policies, but I think a lot of it is, what does everyone do every day? Like, I don't, it's not as simple as asking everybody write down what you actually do, not your job description, but what do you actually do every day, every week, every month? When I interview, that's kind of what I ask people, is to walk me through what you do periodically. I don't know if that's a way to gather some information along the way to ask, you have some new people, but some of the other people, if they're doing something different, like Sabrina, I don't really know what she does exactly, although I know it's kind of project related, so.
Yeah, I think in terms of that, it's, what are the sources of information that you use? Like if we're doing a reconciliation, just clarity, what are we reconciling to what? How are reconciling items managed? Making sure that we don't have reconciling items that kind of hang around and, and just sit on reconciliations for months at a time, that sort of thing. Okay.
Right.
okay, good. Thank you. I got muted there for a while, sorry, and I couldn't unmute myself, so.
My other concern is there are a few areas in the audit that are gonna be some challenges to get through, just from a time like capital assets and stuff, that
Yeah.
was a huge process, so. Somebody else is gonna have to do it, so I don't know if that's a way to document that point, just from the accounting standpoint, not from reporting standpoint, but.
Yeah.
And then there's other reconciliations that just need to get done, and analysis like retainage, so I would. The controller always had to go through all those projects to figure out what retainage is. So there's things like that, and that's on the list that we sent.
Okay.
I think the time it's gonna take is a little bit longer than it would have taken somebody who's done it for the last 5 years. Anyway, so I think that's integrated into this, but some of that could generate some of this documentation at the same time. So if someone's doing something new, and can document some of what they had to do to get the pension financials done. Which, that's being worked on right now. Outside of the recommendation is to do it more often and put it in the general ledger, not just do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I would just say is let's not forget the Board of Ed piece. That's another piece that, and it has tended to trip us up with the year-end close, is sometimes a disconnect on what we need from the Board of Ed. I mean, Joe, but just again, with turnover, that should be part of that comprehensive uh, sort of check. Okay.
right, I would, what data we need from them, and some of it is capital asset based, because some are data over to get put in, and then there's a few other things that get integrated in addition to the actual funds that they manage. But there is because of the way the system was put in, that there is a Board of Ed, they have their own general ledger, and at some point that has to get married together. So the general fund is really town and board added together. So it's I don't know if that was on the list, Tom, but that's something you're gonna have to look at.
Right.
That doesn't line up as nice. Good thing is, I think the business manager that's over there, she's done it for a long time, and she asked a lot of questions, so I got him working on a couple things that didn't go well last year. So on top of it, so from that standpoint, the communication should be better and that type of thing. But yeah, definitely knowing what you need for close from the Board of Ed, encumbrances, and everything that goes to the Board of Finance to get approved is going to be important also.
Okay. So do you think that, well, we can talk about this under item 3 a little bit more, but do you think we can have that like to-do list in the next month or so we know where we're going?
I think we need it before then, John. If Joe's going to start in 2 weeks.
Well, they can do it, but report back to us at our,
report back to us.
that's what I meant, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
Are
we
we
should
doing
give
that?
our input to,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Everyone works on the list, and then me and Tom can work out a strategy of how we're gonna address those and start it sooner than later.
and start doing it and then give us an update at one of our future audit meetings, which we have to talk about it under item number 3. That's probably what I would suggest.
I will begin work on the list tomorrow. Begin, not complete. So,
No, I get it.
yeah.
All right, anything else on item number 2? All right. So item number 3 is to hear, consider, and act upon a 2025 meeting schedule, even though we're halfway through 2025. I think I thought we had done this. I remember mapping out dates over the year, but I don't know what happened to it. So, and Jen Carpenter said, come up with a couple of more dates so we can approve minutes. That's probably a good idea. So, so I was looking at the calendar, and oh, by the way, I reached out to her today. She has about 5 audits that are completed, so she would like to present them to us.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at the next couple of months, our meeting schedule. We have a Board of Finance meeting on September 16th. Maybe we can meet then.
We have
Yeah.
one on this. I think our regular meeting is on the 2nd, John.
Yeah,
September.
the day after Labor Day. Do you want to meet 6 o'clock the day after Labor Day for audit subcommittee, then go into a full meeting for the Board of Finance? I mean, I don't,
I
but
actually have an audit subcommittee meeting on my calendar
for what date?
for 6 o'clock on the on the second. So maybe we didn't approve the schedule, John, but I
It's
wrote
not,
it down, so.
it's not on the calendar. I looked on the town website, so.
Okay, all right.
I mean, whatever you guys want to do, I don't. I'm suggesting September 16th have a meeting. We have a September 23rd capital workshop, but I assume you don't want to do a audit subcommittee meeting before that one. That's a big meeting, the capital workshop meeting.
Yeah.
Lori, is our first meeting in September? You have any idea if there's a big agenda for the Board of Finance regular meeting? You just don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
So
The
I think that
16th is quarterly, so
September 16th, I think is a quarterly,
it's
right?
the quarterly, so I don't know how people feel about the second, because that might be
So I'm actually on vacation on the second, which I may be able to do it from vacation, but if we
Yeah.
could avoid it, that would be easier. And so the 16th works for me. And the only thing I see on my calendar, it looks like Rosh Hashanah may start on the 23rd.
yes.
So it doesn't matter to me, but I guess that's probably not the best meeting night.
Yeah, that's why I think the Board of Finance, the capital project summit is on the 25th for that reason. We did it on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday. I think.
Oh, we changed it? Okay.
No, that's the scheduled. That's what's on the schedule is the 25th.
All right.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
One of the follow-up items from the last Board of Finance meeting was a request for documentation related to vehicles. And Connie will have completed a 6th audit, which will cover vehicles. And I think maybe you should review that before your regular meeting.
Okay,
So would that be for the,
It would be, if you meet on the 2nd or 3rd or whatever, it would be available. It will be available.
is that something that we want to just, we can look at it, but don't we want to just give the full board the opportunity to look at that specific one,
That's
Lori?
fine, but it will be in the form of an audit report.
What do you
yeah,
think?
I mean, I think I know there were some requests on that. I mean, normally we we do the update to the full board once a year. I think this past year we might have done it twice. The only reason I hesitate is I just want to know what else is on the agenda. Like we don't
Mhm.
want an agenda with, 18 items on it. And so, Tom, I agree. I don't know if we need to single that one out. I think
Okay,
I'd like to see it, but I'd like to,
yeah,
I mean, if we're going to meet to go through these audits, it would be good to get all of them in one shot rather than have a meeting for that one and then have a meeting for the other 5. So, but if Mary's not available on the second,
I don't even care if you want to just, if you want to take some time to go through these audits instead of rushing, we could just do it not on a different night from a Board of Finance meeting too. I
Yeah.
don't.
my
Sometimes that's
only point was
too.
there's a request, there will be a request for the information. And the question is, will you want to have looked at it before it goes to the full board?
I mean, I'm indifferent to that, but
Okay,
I think if we're gonna get an update from Connie, which normally during these meetings, I mean, we meet with Joe twice a year, but the purpose of these other meetings has been to get regular updates from Connie as she goes along. So, I mean, my preference would be that at our next audit committee meeting, we look at all the available audits. So if we can't do it on the second, I don't know.
Are you
If
around the 9th?
or the week before, is there something on the last week of August? Is that
I'm away
possible?
for that week.
Okay.
Is that September 16th is a regular Board of Finance meeting, right? Or is that quarterly?
Quarterly. The regular meeting is on the second.
The
So,
second, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, our audit committee group can meet the week of the September 8th if you want to do the audits. Pick a night.
okay. Yeah, it's fine with me.
You wanna do September 9th? I don't think I have anything going on. Let me look. Gee. I think that's okay.
I can do the 9th.
Me too.
Yeah, and then we can get an Joe too.
So we're gonna have a meeting. It's gonna be a regular meeting, September 9th. And then well, maybe we have to wait on this one. When do you, this group, when does the three of us want to meet? Probably one more time, right? During,
Yeah, we should meet before year end to go through the ACFR. So I had that because again, I wrote down dates. So I feel like maybe we did set a meeting calendar. I don't know if we voted on it, but I also have December 2nd on at 6 o'clock.
let's do it that then.
I won't be here anymore.
I won't either, but
Oh, God. Well, then
So
I
we
don't
can
want to
do
do
it,
it. We're not even gonna have an audit committee established by then, so December 2nd.
Yeah, so then, well, at least I don't know when the last meeting is, but
it might be the November 18th.
Okay.
Because the election day is what, the 11th or?
No, the 4th, I think.
Oh, the
is-
4th.
We have a meeting on the 5th of November.
Okay.
But Joe won't be ready for anything that early, right? No,
I-
no way. You usually hear from Joe what, in December? A little
Summers,
update?
yeah,
everything goes smoothly, but
I guess you're just gonna have to do December 2nd, even though,
Well, I think December, will that be the organizational meeting? Likely.
yeah.
So I don't think you're gonna do it then, so,
well, maybe you're just
what I
gonna
would
have
say,
to,
why don't we just set why don't we just, for now,
September 9th.
do the 9th and, maybe, I would like to put one more on the calendar just to, at least for this project.
How about November 18th? That's a meeting, I think the board is meeting on that night.
Okay,
So we'll do a meeting on September 9th and November 18th, 6 PM.
okay.
All right? I'll tell them two regular meetings. And maybe at the November meeting, we can get an update from Joe and Tom on what we discussed tonight, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, November 18th won't work for me.
okay,
Unfortunately.
17th?
17th will work.
all right, November 17th,
Okay,
6 PM.
all right.
All right, I'll tell Jen to put those on the calendar and so on the 9th, we'll hear from Connie on the audits, September 9th. And November 17th, tentatively we'll hear an update from Joe and Tom on what we discussed tonight. That make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well,
Great.
and then when Lori and Mary leave the audit subcommittee, the subcommittee will cease to exist.
No, it come back and haunt the board if that happens.
Yeah,
All right.
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. So item number 4 is I'll entertain a motion to it. Oh, I think we have to vote on number 3. So
Okay,
vote to approve a regular meeting for September 9th, 2025 and November 17th, 2025. I do the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye.
I
And then item number 4, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor, aye. Have a good rest of the summer.
Thank
All
you,
right.
you also.
enjoy your summer,
Right.
enjoy your
We'll be
grandchild.
all together again soon.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
guys. Thanks. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye.